Greetings historians, welcome to Lore of the Dragon, and the world of Glyde. This world is, to put it simply, massive, both in game and from what I hear lore-wise. So I want to bring it onto the channel, and share what story the world has and offers to all of you. As much as our heroes' adventures is still to be unraveled, what knowledge we have on them is few and far between. But despite that, I believe to start our own adventure in this world, we should start with what we know of our heroes' side. From the dragons, to their world, then to Glyde and Wing themselves, the main characters. In about a week, I'll be covering the main threat to the dragons, the corruption, as I think it's deep enough to talk about on its own. If you guys are interested, at the end of this, I will be giving a prompt to speculate on, so stick around for the end of the video. First, let us talk about this world, as it hasn't quite been discussed from what I can find. Like I said, this world is massive, so it hosts various lands. These lands vary from lush valleys to canyons, then to even more exotic lands such as ones abundant with crystals, or floating islands hovering above the ground below. And these lands are host to the dragons. The reason I start with the dragons and not Glyde himself is because Glyde is unique, as you'll see. And it might start to unravel some details about this world that haven't quite been talked about. The dragons are divided into 8 different factions, each representing an element: fire, ice, nature, electricity, wind, earth, water, and crystal. Some are mysterious, and vice versa for others. But with what glimpses we have been given, the dragons belonging to each faction share a distinct appearance, their banners boldly showing their colors. In addition, they wrote literature. In fact, one language seems to appear on Glyde when he harnesses the crystal element. Maybe this could be an arcane language tied to the magic of their world. It could even be that's what the dragon language is based off of. However, that remains to be seen. So it would seem that, as is the case with many stories, dragons are a dominant species in this world, through culture and sheer power. And so I imagine some, if not most, are prideful. As such, they make everything grandiose, both in appearance and in scale. As well, we've heard of armor being in this world. Non-surprising. Of course, its purpose would be for defense, for a guard. Perhaps some were built for more powerful individuals. Now, if these types of armor were used in war, perhaps against other dragons, we don't know. But because of what we've seen for Glyde so far, in lore, when the armor appears, it's easy to assume that it was crafted before the corruption invaded the dragon's land. The corruption being, of course, an invading force from a, I guess, different dimension. We'll be going into that next week. While we don't know many differences from a societal standpoint with the dragons, we do have some information on the wind and crystal dragons. First off, remember the floating islands I mentioned earlier? Well, those serve as the homes of the wind dragons. And to travel the distance between these floating islands to different parts of the land, or to the islands from the ground below, the wind dragons created magical airways. This allows the wind dragons not only to have much faster mobility than other dragons, but an easier method to travel from where I imagine they would go uncontested. Secondly, the crystal dragons, like their elements, are mysterious. We know from certain presentations that those able to wield the crystal element can summon anything from crystal shards to even singularities. So, black holes. This sort of power, I imagine, would place them atop many dragons, at least in terms of sheer power. In addition to the crystal dragons, in a preview for Dragon Eggs, there is a music track called Crystalline Sanctum. This is more speculation, but there are 2 definitions for the word sanctum that might give us a view into the crystal dragon society. The first definition is a sacred place, especially a shrine within a temple or church. The second one is a private place which most people are excluded. This can mean that while harnessing the mysterious power of crystal, they also built places of worship to it, or their land is what they call a sanctum, and they just tend to want to be alone, and are isolationist in nature. especially to, let's say, I imagine other dragons. Now, the remaining factions are not as easy to point out. While we know a bit more about the wind dragons and some of the crystal dragons, the only other things we know about these other species is where they might live, which corresponds to their element and therefore faction. But for now, there's not much that has been revealed about them. However, when we look at Glyde, all I can glean from that is that he's an anomaly. He doesn't seem to conform to any appearance that we've seen from other dragons, nor coloration of the other factions. He bears a scale color that no other dragon, at least that we know of, has. Yet we've seen him, at the same time, take on the elements of these factions, their appearance, and in time being able to manipulate these elements to his own will in a multitude of ways. Perhaps it was a magic-based accident, or rather something to do with this corruption that we've talked about. I imagine that it can be the target of much speculation for days to come, but moving on to someone who is even more mysterious, it is the character of Wing. While his appearance takes almost that of a sprite with the dragon wings and tail, what exactly he is hasn't been spoken. Most of what we know has just been observations, like his appearance. But there might be some things to take from that alone. Whatever Wing is, if there are any more of his kind, I would imagine that they're very closely tied to the dragons. Due to him having the ability to grab objects like crystal shards scattered across the landscape, save Glyde at a specific point in time, and act as a guide to the world, he both seems wise and powerful. Maybe before, Wing traveled the lands, learning many things on his own journey. Or perhaps he was granted this knowledge. Maybe he was some sort of all-knowing guide. For now, the path ahead is unknown. But hopefully, as we move forward, we learn more things about the world of Glyde, and what is in store for us. So, for the prompt I mentioned, I want to see what you all think each dragon society is like, and perhaps what makes Glyde different. Maybe the circumstances of why he's able to use all the elements. Then maybe how exactly each dragon society might react to that. If you have any ideas, leave them down in the comments below. If you all want to stay up to date on the news of the channel, I have my Twitter page and my community tab for you to keep an eye on. Or rather, if you wish to talk to others in the community, feel free to stop by the Discord. As well, if you wish to stay up to date on things Glyde the Dragon, I've linked their Twitter and Discord in the description below, along with my own. There's also talk of a demo coming out soon in the future, and I'd highly recommend checking it out when it actually does come out. But if you just wish to stick by the channel and see things as they come out, that's more than fine with me. I hope to see you all the next time we talk and speculate about Spyro, and now, Glyde. Stay safe, historians.